Thank you. Mr. President, it's a daunting privilege indeed to address this Congress on behalf of the National Council for Civil Liberty, at such a vital moment in the struggle for fundamental rights and freedoms around the world. Workers' rights and human rights have always been inseparable. We are no less human on the shop floor or picket line than in the living room or at the food bank, no less human for the accident of being born on one spot on this restless planet rather than another. And inequalities and abuses of power always begin with divide and rule. The NCCL was founded in 1934 because hunger marchers arriving in Hyde Park were duffed up by the Metropolitan Police. Forgive the legal jargon, but they were. That would never happen today, would it? Undercover police officers dressed as marchers and behaved violently in order to justify a violent policing response. Please remember that whenever a Home Secretary says that the innocent have nothing to fear from surveillance or other unchecked police power. And I know that you remember the databases of blacklisted trade unionists of recent years, the women in the environmental movement in intimate relationships with men who turned out to be abusing police power. Remember my friend Doreen Lawrence. Not only did they fail to investigate her son's racist murder, when her campaign for justice began to gain ground, when she embarrassed the authorities, they investigated her instead. There's been an authoritarian arms race in British politics for at least 20 years, with both major parties attacking the basic rights and freedoms of ordinary people. The new Labour leadership has an opportunity to change that in a way that many liberal conservatives would welcome. But the trade union movement never once wavered in its support for liberty. I'm here today because a great friend of mine and of human rights the world over invited me. In Frances O'Grady, your first woman General Secretary, you have a great leader and a role model to campaigners and especially to young women at this extraordinary moment of challenge and opportunity for all of us who believe that there is more to life than letting other people's children drown, not in faraway oceans, but in seas of smug self-interest closer to home. I'm here because Mary Boustad was once an inspirational English teacher in a comprehensive school. It's true. And she taught, she won't like me for giving away our respective ages here, but there you go. She taught a stroppy, but not always strategic 15-year-old daughter of migrants how to understand To Kill a Mockingbird and how to present a better reasoned argument. That 15-year-old grew up to become a lawyer and an activist and to be called by the Sun newspaper the most dangerous woman in Britain. Thank you. Goodness me, how I've enjoyed that over the years. And I tell you what, the claps get louder the closer you get to the great city of Liverpool. But anyway, yeah, so that was a badge that I carefully polished until recently, when I'm afraid that my title was stolen by a charismatic politician north of the border. And to add insult to injury, the First Minister of Scotland is younger than me as well. And I'm here with fond memories of the late, great Steve Sinnott, one of the first people in public life to befriend and support me when I took on the challenging role of leading Liberty just a couple of years into the misjudged, misnamed war on terror. An instinctive feminist as well as a trade unionist, I think he knew even then what's only become so very clear to me now. Women, now more than half of trade unionists, are surely your movement's secret weapon, capable of changing its face and fortunes and of expelling the spectre of a return to 1970s strife once and for all. Forgive my cheeky advice, but whichever union you're from, push the women to the front, nudge them towards the cameras and the microphones and into leadership positions. What better contrast with the elites in politics and big business? What truer representation of modern trade unionism? And I'm here, most of all, because of the need for solidarity against the current assault on liberty. The new trade union bill and imminent threat to the Human Rights Act represent a spiteful and ideological attack on rights and freedoms that must have one nation Tories like Disraeli and Churchill spinning in their graves, forcing dissenters to wear armbands, forcing them to register with the police. Has this government no history, no imagination? These attempts to divide, rule, and dominate ordinary people in different sectors of the economy and different parts of the world are neither democratic nor even conservative. And I urge all thoughtful one-nation parliamentarians to defeat them. Government, as legislator, is simply abusing its power over the statute book to allow it to abuse its power as a big employer. If it wants to avoid disruption to public services, it should look after its workforce, not make pathetic attempts to demonise it in the eyes of the rest of the people. How would it be if there could only be 6 people on a pro-countryside demonstration? Or if shareholders or consumers were restricted from collective action against investment in apartheid South Africa? Why should anyone need permission for their freedoms of expression and association, including on social media? And it's the same authoritarian instinct motivating the government to scrap our Human Rights Act and even to pull Britain out of the Convention on Human Rights. Trade unions fought for women's votes, pay, and better workplace conditions. Human rights laws protect them from rape and trafficking, deportation and discrimination. Let's be clear that women would be amongst the greatest victims of this government's onslaught on freedom, and we must not let it succeed. A great new film called Suffragette opens in a few weeks. It's a blockbuster, perfectly timed for this moment of adversity and opportunity. It will remind audiences worldwide of the enduring importance of dissent and solidarity and show our own government to be on the wrong side of liberty and of history. Why should internationalism just be for money and markets and corporations and organised crime? Why not for ordinary people and their values? Why should human rights only ever be an excuse for military intervention over there and not protection of the vulnerable closer to home? The people's response to the refugee crisis has already shamed the government into showing just an ounce of common decency. It showed the government on the wrong side of humanity. Please join Liberty as individual members and continue to affiliate as trade unions. Together we can defend our hard-won freedoms. And thank you for listening.